it's so exciting to see this irrigation sprung on here. Oh, hey, it doesn't matter. I'm telling you, this is really cool. It's amazing how you can get so excited with a little bit of irrigation. But you know what? There was a lot that built up to this moment, so boom. Welcome back to Changing Latitudes. We've had a little bit of time off during the winter as we worked on other projects. Those filmings are going to come out later, but we are starting the season here in North Idaho of trying to grow our grass. So I thought it would be a good time to share with you the work that was done inside this lighthouse, a little 8x8 cement box that we've turned into a beautiful structure with a light that comes on every night. Really grandiose and excited to have it. What's inside is our new Pentek sub-drive that runs our system of the well that pulls the water up from the reservoir and delivers it to our irrigation system. We have literally thousands of linear feet of irrigation lines running through our property, covering over 1.5 acres of land. Dozens and dozens and dozens of rainbird heads spraying its way around, using that water that is, if you will, reclaimed from the creek every year as we, replenish our reservoir. Today I'm going to share out how I built this system, how simple it is to do, and maybe you'll take on the task yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and change up and start our project. Inside the lighthouse now, where the well sits right here to my right, we have all the electrical set up and ready to go, plumbed in from the reservoir. Also the water line sitting right underneath me here, plumbed in from the reservoir, and then the outlines going out to the valves that are going to send it out through the distribution. What we don't have in place is the sub-drive that'll drive the pump down at the well next to the reservoir. And we don't have in place the pressure tank, the filter, the meter that I want to run, some valves to shut off so that we can do our winterizing, and all the equipment that goes along with it. There's quite a bit to do. Many parts that are going to go together into one. And I'm going to have to start off with merely putting a board into this cement here. And what we've learned by prior efforts, we can drill into it and tap con screws and things of that nature, and that works, and there's nothing wrong with it. It is a little bit of a process we can get on. But I've also learned that when I use this ram set here, I can get that in pretty quick, get that nailed up into the cement, and it's stable and it works well. That's what I use on the boards behind me. So I'm going to start with that first, put that in place so that's out of the way, and then move on to the electrical, get that plumbed in all the way up into the sub-drive, and then land that, close that out, close out that electrical piece, let it sit there, and then move back onto the water portion of the setup here, which of course start with hanging the manifold and then onto the pressure tank and it's all of its resulting parts. When we'll finish off with basically finishing that plumb line in from both the reservoir and out to the valve system to the irrigation system. So it's a whole process that we're going to have to get going here. And it's pretty tight space in here. It's 8x8, and obviously you see all these rocks down here. So the first steps I have to do after getting the wood up on the wall is getting all these rocks out of the way so I can run the lines underneath it. But it's a beautiful space that was originally quite ugly. And if you've not seen the lighthouse video that we put together, you'll see that origin of where this came from. It was quite the masterpiece, let's call it that. You should step back in and look at that as well. So what we're going to do is go through all these different steps with you. And here we go. Okay, I've run into a little bit of a problem. The ram shot is not punching through this cement. It is concrete, sorry. This concrete is literally got to be, it's estimated about 50 years old, almost as old as I am. And it's just not going through it. So I'm going to go ahead and switch gears here, do some tap cons, which means I'm going to have to drill into this to get it to go in. Not a problem, it's just a different path. Okay, this backboard was a little bit more of a pain than you would have wanted. The ram shot wasn't working, so I went to the tap cons, and of course, you don't have just random parts sitting around, so tap cons were just a bit long. But hey, listen, that's anchored and it won't come off the wall, and when there's water in here and there's pressure, it's probably good that it's there. Okay, so I've put a screw up here in the top, and I'm going to go ahead and put the sub drive up. Drive a couple more screws, get it stable, and then start working on my electrical line through the rock down here up and into it. So it should run up here the parallel of this, and then with the kit sitting out here, all the different components laying across, we should be in good order right here. I'm expecting the pressure tank to come about to here, maybe a little bit lower if I hang it down lower, but somewhere right in here. Which is fine. It's going to look like a lot of activity here, but I want to leave the two sides open so that I can in the future put racks down to hold things. This will be my epicenter for all things that have to do with the lawn and the irrigation system. I'll have my air tank here so I can blow out the lines, and hoses and maybe even food and things of that nature for the feeding the lawn. So anyway, so let's go ahead and hang this up. The water pressure control center up here on the wall, I'm going to go ahead and start my electrical, running it through the rock and up. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and throw myself one of these male inserts into here, get myself ready to go. I'll plumb into here and set my course accordingly. Unfortunately, the two wires that are driven through, running it here from the sub panel, are opposite, and then I've got the 4 wires coming in from the well on this side, so they're going to unfortunately have to crisscross in here. No big deal, we have plenty of space, but it's just funny how it always works, right? I couldn't put it on the right side of the sub panel and have it map anyway, because as it turns out, I have all my negatives plumbed into this side of the box, and it would have been too much. So I think this is the better path. The wiring that comes out of this that goes and connects to the pressure regulator is right here. It'll come right down, plumb right into it. Looks good. It'll work. Really is no faster way to do this, unfortunately. There's no big scoop for the rocks inside a little box like this. So I just have to mind my way through. Do a little dry fit so we make sure we have the right length on the wire. I know I ran quite a bit of excess, but you never know until you know. Okay, a little bit out of breath there. We're moving all these little rocks and everything. And, you know, I got the electrical line. Obviously, you can see the feed all the way up through. I'm going to set that off to the side for a second as I work on the other piece coming across here, and then I'll do all the connections. Yeah, so it's going to be a nice little loop from here to here. You know, use a little bit of flex, you know, conduit and put it all together. So with that, I'm going to keep going. So we got all the wires to where, you know, the destination needs to be. Got to clean them up a little bit here and get them going. You know, as I think about this project and bringing this all together, it's been quite the journey. And like I said earlier, there's quite a bit of videos out there on everything that I've done so far, if that's something that, you know, interests you. But it's quite a journey, especially when you're new at all this stuff. You know, we have a lot of tools, and there's no doubt that we could probably pull it all off from a tool perspective. But then there's also the learning aspects of doing all this. You know, what is right, what is wrong. I do talk to a lot of people when I'm buying stuff, and I, you know, try to learn as much as I can. Plus, of course, I've got the YouTube community. So I do make sure that I try to get as much knowledge before I go playing with stuff like this. I mean, this unit is not cheap. You know, you've got the pump and all that other stuff combined. I think that, you know, you're looking at about $4,000 to $5,000. So it's not an inexpensive proposition to go down this road. So you want to do it right, you know. The good news is that our water is replenished every year to the reservoir. You know, we're going to be able to store approximately 1 million gallons down there. Now, after you get evaporation, some seepage and things like that, of course, we will not have 1 million gallons of usage. We'll be fortunate if we get 25% of that seepage and that evaporation. Probably going to be able to use about 70% of the water that we're collecting, or 700,000 gallons. Now, we may not be using 700,000 gallons for certain, but it's available to us if ever the day comes that I need to get there. It's interesting, these are a lot like the irrigation nodes. They're not overly complex. You're just gonna slip it in that hole and get it up there and get it going. We got this far in. Let's go back over and take care of the sub panel. We are in. I think the sub panel's maxed out. It's had its fill. So everything's in the right direction there. We got the wires, like I said, a good tug, and they're both in there. The ground is in. So everything's in, ready to go. I'm gonna go ahead and close up the sub panel and get it out of the way. This is done. Okay, now back over to the water pressure control center, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I have everything cleaned up and ready to go here, input it in so that this can be closed up as well. We should only have to use this control panel after the fact. Everything else should be just closed up and forgot about, wires are in, everything's in its location. There is one more wire that needs to come out of here and go down and obviously connect to the pressure. So I'll put that in before I close up because it's kind of a pain taking this lid off. It's got a stubborn little control on the top there that makes it difficult to get out. Okay, we're all wired up here. I'm going to go ahead now and insert the pressure regulator. It's a nice little cord that goes down and connects into your manifold and of course reads the pressure that tells this whether or not to pump more. So black on the right, red on the left. Green cable goes into the ground. Okay, let's see what we get here. Okay, so we are all tied out, looking good. Wires are tight, all in the right places. A1, A2, black, white, black, red. Good, good, good. Okay, we should be golden. Sub panel over to here. Let's put the lid on. Okay, everything is in the sub drive, obviously, and nothing's turned on. No reason to turn it on at this moment. So I've got to do some work down here to get the manifold built, get all that kind of structure put together, and then I'll go ahead and affix it to the rack. I think I'm going to take a moment out though and put the rack in so that I can go ahead and get some of the tools out of here that I've been using. And, keep everything kind of somewhat organized, even though it's a little tough. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move forward to the water portion of this setup. So obviously I've got some galvanized pipes here that I'm going to put together and just, obviously a little origami here. You got to put different parts together to get yourself your build out. So I will be putting a blowout on both the in and the outflow, so that I can put a valve on it as well. So we have the ability to turn this on and off. So I have the left side all built out here. I have this swooping out so the poly can go ahead and swing into it. This is the the blowhole for the blowing out for the winter, and of course shutting off the valve. It was very funny during COVID. It was very difficult to find any parts of any sort. And so I have other structures in this property that I went, it looks a little loopy. Frankly, if you look at it, if you were a plumber, you'd go, oh my God, what did he do here? Why did he do that? But you just couldn't get parts and you wanted to move forward. So you had to do some creative MacGyver work to get it done. Now, the parts are here, so it's easier to do the work. Okay, so I've got the right side completed and set up. I'm going to go ahead and do the middle now. I did set myself up really nicely with some unions so that the middle can be separated from the left and the right. Critical when you're putting together plumbing is to always think about what could fail and what you will have to do if you don't
take care of it properly. You know, say anything could fail. You could have, you know, one of these things are, you know, one of these pieces aren't tightened in enough. I don't have the pipe dope on correctly. Something could go wrong. So I've made sure that I have the, you know, go ahead and have the unions on here. You know, I also have other parts to this that will have to maybe someday be taken apart. Say a filter comes apart or breaks the plastic over time. You know, it is inside a little room here, so I don't expect that. But, you know, things could happen, so therefore I've set myself up with a union. So what I have going on is this is going to come up here, make its turn into the meter. I want to know how much water I'm pumping each season. So this will tell me what I'm pumping a day, and it'll also tell me what I'm pumping through it in a total season, and I'll be able to chart that every year. Again, this is being filled by our irrigation system is being supplied by a reservoir that only has 375,000 gallons at the beginning of a season. So I do have a second pond, as I've shown you in other videos, a second pond that is going to help supply the main reservoir. But at this point in time, right now, I can only reliably say that we have 225,000 gallons, so it's going to be important to have a meter and understand how I'm pulling. So with that, I'm going to go ahead now and connect the right to the manifold. You know, maybe I'll go ahead and put it in so the poly can fit in. I'll put that in first, and then I'll connect this all up to the manifold. You gotta be very careful. I've got this plastic part here, and then I've got some plastic parts with the filter as well. So don't want to bang anything out of order, if you will. So that would not be good. So much of this is about thinking through what piece has to fit with what piece first to make things line up. You don't forethink it out. You know, you're going to be sitting here going, ouch. And I've done that many times, believe me. So, you know, it's kind of like this whole idea of, you know, hey, this part here is right in the ground. So do I want to deal with it in the post? No, I'm not going to want to. I'm going to have to put the poly in after the fact, but I most certainly don't want to deal with this piece here, this connector to the poly, while I'm on the ground. Okay, now I've got it all put together here, the water system, if you will. So now I've got to go ahead and fix on the mounting system so that it holds this up. You know, got some rock to clear out of the way. I'll probably put the tube into both sides, you know, when everything's kind of loose fit so that I can bend the tube in. You gotta be careful with this poly. It's not the super thick stuff. This stuff can pinch, and then you're screwed. You got to go ahead and put a coupling in and tighten it back out again. Don't want to deal with that. So I want to make sure that I've got all these rocks out of the way. A little bit of a pain, but that's what we got to do. Okay, I'm going to go ahead now and put it in the brackets that will hold up the manifold. Just going to simply, you know, put it up here and then let it all kind of sit off the top of it. Real simple stuff. So. With everything level now, ready to go, I've covered up the pipes, the poly, with the rock. Everything's in place now. So this is just the final elements, right? To put in the pressure regulator, pressure tank over here to the pressure system that we're going to make sure that the sub drive drives the pump. and then just a simple bleed out valve. So then, I've got myself my pressure regulator here, should I say my indicator. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in along with my filter. And yeah, it looks pretty good. It's really, really stable, tight, looks really solid. So I'm happy with the product. So here we go. We're going to continue to close this thing out. Here we go with the filter. Now this is one of those spin down filters, and the idea here is if anything gets past the pump down there and the screens, that it'll be sediment that'll hit against this, and so it won't go into the heads in the irrigation system. So it's good, right? So then if I ever need to bleed it out, all I have to do is open up the valve on the bottom, and it'll go ahead and spin its way out. Now there's where the challenge comes in. So you still have to leave your right valve open, so again your pressure doesn't blow up your system. But you do have to close down this to get the pressure to build behind the spin out. So here we go. This is all new to me. I've had to research everything. Now it's supposed to have a little hose that drains out. This is a rock base with sand underneath it and just goes into the earth. And there's actually a drain in here. So there's a pipe that runs all the way out to our French drains. It's not like I'm going to run a bunch of gallons through it. It's just going to pop it open, spray it out, be done. If I get tricky in the future, I'll put a hose in, but I don't think so. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Now it's time to connect the wire that's going to connect to the subdrive and drive the pressure regulation from the well down by the reservoir. Okay, I'm all complete with the system here. It is, powered from here, the sub panel that's ran, of course, from our house down to this sub panel. Runs across here, turns on our power to our drive that will run the pump down at the well at the reservoir. This line comes down and of course connects into here so we can understand the pressure that it's going to need to drive the pump to run our system. And of course you come up here on the left from the reservoir up into here. I have my calibrator here that tells me, the meter that tells me what is going through the system in any time frame. I would have liked it to be a little bit to the right instead of underneath this, but I can still reach underneath there and I can still read it, so that's good. Okay, of course we got the pressure tank here, what is our pressure meter here, and then a quick valve just go. And then, of course, our filter to make sure that we don't have any large sediment going into our heads and sprinkler system. And then a valve blowout and back out to the valve system that runs our irrigation.
It's time to start building out the pump. Of course, this is going to require figuring out first how many feet down the well goes. We have a shallow well because of course it's only connected to the reservoir. So it goes down exactly 9 feet to the very, very bottom. So one of the first things you're going to have to do is assemble the pump itself, which of course requires you to take out, you got your pump here, and then of course you've got your motor. And then put the two together first, figure out that length. Then there's a couple parts we have to put together. I'm going to use a union at the top, some male parts, to put the fittings together, and a chuck valve. So all those come into the measurement because what I ultimately have to figure out is the length of the pipe. And it doesn't seem overly important, but one of the first things you have to remember when putting together anything that is a PVC pipe is you're going to glue up these parts, and this is quite a bit. There's a lot of weight here. I bet this thing's upward around 20-25 pounds, and so you've got that pulling on that male insert and onto that pipe, so it'll obviously want to pull apart. So I've got to actually glue it up, and I'm going to go ahead and let it sit overnight and tighten up and make sure that that has no way to come out. I'm going to test a couple times, because unless I've got some scuba gear and thin up a little bit, I'm not going down into that well. And you know, it's about 2.5 feet wide, and yeah, you could get down there, but good luck. It is very tight, and you know, trying to pull up something this heavy from the bottom would just be near impossible. So you can't make the mistake. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting this thing together. First, break everything out of its box. Now, obviously, you got your Franklin motor here, and you know your McDonald submersible pump, and hopefully everything comes together really tight. And when I get down there, you know, after of course all the wires and everything else are put together, and get that union on, it'll be a lot easier, because I suspect somewhere along the way I'm going to have to eventually you know, loosen it back up, pull the whole pump out. Maybe it'll get, you know, some sort of sediment or leaves or something stuck in it, and I'm going to have to clean it out. So I'm hoping that won't be a common occurrence, but it may happen, and I need to be prepared for such a thing. Okay, we got our pipe here, we're ready to go. I got it cut and set up for success. I think I'll go ahead and tape it tomorrow when I go to put it all together. I do have to make sure that I get my wires all heated up and, you know, put together properly. So that might be something I do down there. I haven't decided yet. But yeah, here we go. It's ready to go. Down at the reservoir now to go ahead and start working on our well. We have our pump, the motor hooked up together, put together. We've cut our PVC pipe to come up. We're ready to hook into the pitless adapter so that the water can be sent up to the lighthouse and get that distribution going. So excited, we're right on the edge of this. So it's kind of one of those moments where, hey, don't screw up, but at the same time, you feel confident enough to move forward. Now, what's inside here is basically, you know, goes down 11 feet, comes from a pipe out there in the middle, funnels its way over to this well that we've designed, and then of course we're going to stick this pump on down into it. Got to keep a hand on it. It's going to be heavy at the end of this pipe. That's the reason why I had to go ahead and glue up overnight and stiffen up so that we don't have it fall out the end. I'm going to also attach a rope to the motor just in case something was to go bad. We have that rope stuck to the end of it, and I can foist it up if I have to. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start doing some of the connection work, and then we're going to go ahead and heat up the wires, the plastic around to get the connection going. Heat up that plastic, get that sealed out so there's no water penetrating in, and then work its way up to the top to where the final connection is going to be. Twist that boy into the union that I'm going to put into place so that I can take it off if I ever run into a problem with the motor. We will have debris in this. It is an open air water container, so therefore it will get debris, and unfortunately we might find a stick or something that'll block the pump from working. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into this. One of the funny things that can happen is that you forget to put these guys down before you make your connections. Gotta, you know, slip them down before you heat it up. Okay, we're all soldered up here, welded, whatever word you want to use. I think we're in good shape. I'm gonna, you know, obviously let it just stiffen just a bit here. It's a little bit soft still, but you know, this guy here oozes out, you know, and
it seals around it as it dries. That gives it that buffer inside here. And then of course this is now shrunk to the wire, so we're in good shape here, nice and tight, all 4 of them. So I think that's good to go. You know, I think to myself, you know, maybe I should wrap it in tape, but then I go, nah, no need to. So here we go. We're gonna go ahead now and start putting the pipe on and get the assembly going. Okay, this is the pitless adapter here. Got to tie in my pipe for my union, and of course very carefully put it in so it doesn't fall. And it falls, it's a bad moment. Okay, for the big moment now. Got to get the pipe in here. Yeah. Oh boy. Like this. So then at the end, I can go like this. And then I can. Oh, sure. Well, that was one of the more intense things I think I've ever done. Man, that's a lot of weight to put on the end and then just trying to reach over. You know, I had to set that pitless that far down so that I could get in here and, you know, get the tubing underneath the ground significantly, you know, at least a foot. You know, it's only about a foot and a half down. But I knew that I had to get able to get in there and reach. And I think that extra 4 inches for the union really put me in a position of having to reach too far. And so that was quite the, whew, I am winded, and that was heavy. That's a lot to do by yourself. So maybe next time I'm going to have to call a friend type thing. Whew, done. Now I move on to the next thing, the wiring. This part is completed and I can put the lid on. I can't tell you how much stress went into this particular point where you're picking up that pump with its motor. It's got to be somewhere around 30 pounds, 25, 30 pounds at the end of a long run, 9 feet. And you know, you're sitting there and you're going, okay, it's got to work, it's got to work. And yeah, it's a lot for one person. Probably needs 2 people to do it next time, and hopefully there isn't a next time. Got the wiring in, feel good about that, and yeah, ready to close it up and ready to go up and start working on the drive that's going to go ahead, and I got to do some settings, and then we're going to go ahead and flip it on and cross our fingers. Okay, woo! Okay, it's that critical moment when you're going to go ahead and flip on the system and make sure that it's working. See, sprinklers type action. So let's go ahead and get that done. So all you have to do is hit the auto start, and in theory, everything starts to go. And you can see the water going through the filter here in the spin. Pressure's looking to start to build just a little bit there. Okay, system, no apparent leaks, which is really cool. A lot of moving parts here. It looks like I am evaluating the water flow in. It seems just a bit high. There might be a calibration need there. But let's go see if we got some sprinklers. Wow, it's really truly cool to see it all come out here. Finally all the water's come up, the pressure's built up, and you have sprinklers. You never thought to yourself that sprinklers would be so exciting. But after putting together a reservoir, running literally thousands of feet of lines through the ground to irrigate all the different systems, I mean, you don't mind getting a little wet in it, if you will. So yeah, so it's a good outcome. I'm really excited about it. I can't tell you that that I could ever think that water could be this exciting unless you're like jet skiing or boating on it. But ultimately, this is an area that used to be we'd had to drag out a couple hoses, sometimes connect them. We could not water this even this center area. Forget about all the other zones, and there are 45 other zones, but nonetheless, this is working great. Exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and start closing out this video as I'm back inside the lighthouse here. Obviously the structure's working. You're seeing the spin down. Everything's working. Totally excited about it. Over to my right shoulder here, you've got our sprinkler timers coming in. All connected. All the zones are ready to go to perform. We just need a little bit more warmer weather. Get the season to kick on here, which doesn't normally happen until, call it early May, mid-May, depends on what the year gives us. But hey, listen, a couple things before I close out this video. I think anybody can do this work. It's really pretty simple. I did rely on RC Worst, who's our provider here locally, to give us, give me all the details behind putting this together, and even, if you will, the confidence. So, it's a pretty simple setup. Obviously, if you have a well that goes deeper, it's going to need a bigger, stronger well to pull it up out of the ground. I gave him all those measurements to lift from the valley all the way to the highest point. I had to give him that measurement. How many gallons per minute I wanted to pull out of the well at the same time. That changes a lot of things. Obviously, scope of plumbing, your scope of your size of your pump, your wiring to that pump. We were able to run 12 gauge down. If the pump was going to pull 40 gallons, I needed to run 8 gauge wire all the way down. That's obviously a very significant cost difference when you consider the distance that it was ran over, about 500 linear feet. And then also too, you had to, the pumps would, all the engineering behind me that goes into the Pentek Intellidrive here would have to be changed and upgraded as well. So, whether you're doing a well that's going, 300-400 feet down, the process is basically the same. You obviously need a pressure tank, you need a drive, a pump, and a motor, and all that combined with obviously electrical coming in. I was able to get away with only having a 20 amp breaker because of the size of the pump. Obviously, the greater the distance and the pull and the necessary action of the motor, you might have to jump that to 60 amps. Obviously, your local provider would give you all that detail. But very simple to do. If you're looking to go out to someone to change out your well, it may be one of those situations where you just, you're pulling it all the way up, and you're thinking, man, why am I going through all this effort? But frankly, it's not that hard to do, to change out a motor. And, a little bit of soldering wires, putting them in that plastic to protect it from the water, and you're off to the races. But again, your local provider will probably give that to you. So anyway, this is truly a success, as you just saw. I'm really excited to have shared this out with you. And again, check out the other videos that led to this. This kind of feels somewhat anticlimactic to have a little squirt of water come out of a rain bird, but at the end of the day, there was a lot that got to that point, and it will save us a lot more and beautify our property over the long run with grass, and that'll just really truly bring the property to life. So with that, hey, thanks for sticking with us to the end. See you soon.